If you've ever stared at Chinese characters and thought, how am I supposed to remember that? You're not alone. I've been there. And honestly, I still have that moment sometimes. But the problem isn't your memory, it's your method. So today, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to approach learning Chinese characters, what stopped working, what clicked, and what I actually do every day. Let's get into it. Most people learn characters like this. Write it 10 times, try to remember it, forget it by next week. Repeat, and look, repetition has its place. But if that's your only strategy, you're working way harder than you need to. Here's why. Chinese has over 50,000 characters, but you only need about 2,000 to 3,000 to read most everyday Chinese. That's still a lot. But here's the thing. Most learners quit before they realize the characters aren't random. There's a system inside them. And once you see it, everything shifts. There are around 200 commonly used radicals in Chinese. And when I say radical, I basically mean a building block, a smaller component that shows up across hundreds of characters. 3 water drops appears in he, hai, yo, pao. See those 3 dots on the left side of a character? Water is almost always involved. Wood or mood radical appears in shu, zhuo, yi, sun. I'd say spend your first few weeks focused almost entirely on the most common radicals before diving into full vocabulary lists. It feels slow, but it pays off faster than you expect. Once you know some radicals, stop studying characters in random vocabulary lists. Start grouping them by family, by shared components. Instead of studying lesson 5 vocabulary, study all the characters with kou, mouth together. Chi, he, chang. It's about an action you do with your mouth. They share a story that makes them easier to hold in memory. And many characters that share a phonetic component actually sound similar too. So if you see qing, you'll notice it shows up in please, clear, feeling, different tones, different meanings, but similar sounds, and you can see the shared piece inside each character. That's not a coincidence. That's the system. Learning in the families means you learn one character and get context clues for 5 more. That's leverage. Now, let's talk about actually writing characters, because this matters more than most people think. Chinese characters have a specific stroke order, and I know it feels like a small detail. Does it really matter which line I draw first? Actually, yes, for a few reasons. First, stroke order affects how your handwriting looks as you write faster. Characters written in the correct order flow naturally. Out of order, they look off even to you. Second, learning stroke order helps you understand how the character is structured. You write it in the order it was designed to be written. That structure is part of how the character makes sense. Third, and this is the one that surprised me, writing correctly helps you remember. The physical act of writing in the right sequence becomes muscle memory, and muscle memory is really hard to forget. This is where I want to mention today's sponsor, Hanzi Dragon app. It's an app that's designed to make learning Chinese characters much more approachable. One of my favorite features is its color-coded radicals. Instead of showing every character in one single color, the app displays each radical in a different color. For example, the first radical is red, the second is yellow, the third is green, and so on. This makes it much easier to identify the different components of a character and see how everything fits together. It covers HSK 3 levels from 1 to 3, giving beginners and HSK learners a clear, structured learning path. You can simply follow the lessons or build your vocabulary step by step. Or, if you prefer to study at your own pace, you can use open practice to choose and practice any character you want. I always say that if you want to remember Chinese characters, you shouldn't just read them. You should write them. Hanzi Dragon includes stroke-by-stroke writing practice, and after each character, you can review it with flashcards that show real words and vocabulary. You can also customize your practice by choosing your preferred input like hand or pen drawing, and adjusting the brush color and size to suit your preference. Another feature I found really useful is the writing feedback. If you make a mistake, whether it's a stroke order, stroke count, or even the direction of a stroke, the app doesn't just mark it as wrong. It actually tells you what you got wrong by comparing with the right one, so you can understand your mistake and improve instead of just guessing. So, if you're currently learning Chinese or thinking about studying, definitely check out Hanzi Dragon using the link in my description. If you'd like to try Pro version, you can use my code Lett to get 1 month of Hanzi Dragon Pro for free. I think it's a great resource, especially for beginners who want to build a solid foundation in reading and writing Chinese. Never learn a character in total isolation. It is much easier to remember a character when it belongs to a compound word, 词语, or a full sentence. For instance, if you learn the character fan, which is rice or meal, learn it alongside 吃饭, eat, and 米饭, cook rice. The more you see a character used in a familiar pattern, the more securely it locks into your memory. One step that so many learners skip is reading actual Chinese, not just flashcards or textbook sentences, real content. You don't have to start with novels. There are plenty of beginner-friendly resources like graded readers, children's books, and apps like Do Chinese. I've also linked some of my favorite reading resources in my description. Even just 5 minutes of reading each day helps you recognize characters more quickly and makes them stick much longer. One mistake I see all the time is spending hours studying Hanzi without actually learning it. Staring at a character, mindlessly flipping through flashcards, or rewriting it over and over isn't very effective. Instead, focus on active recall. Cover the character and try to write or recognize it from memory before checking the answer. Testing yourself, even if you get it wrong, is one of the fastest ways to make characters stick. Hanzi felt impossible to me at first, and honestly, there are still characters that make me go, how did anyone come up with this? But the more I understand the system behind them, the radicals, the families, the logic, the more they feel like a language and less like a war. That shift is available to everyone. It just requires a different approach. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more language learning content. See you in my next video.